Made you host. I made you host as well, Jeff,
Okay.
just so you know. Progress for me is, I've started to try to put my, at least software stuff on this TTGO board on this GitHub site. I started off with using one LoRa library, and then I got into using a different library put out by, I was just going to show the radio, a library called Radiohead, and I struggled with that, but I did ultimately get this RF95 version of it to work. One of the downsides of that particular module is I couldn't figure out if there was they have a channel code process to sort of make your broadcasts a little more private and not disturb other people. And so I was looking around trying to get this library to work and thinking, hey, I'd rather have a library that had some of that functionality. And they had Radiohead, where I was showing RF95. They had another one, RF69, that had some of that functionality, but I couldn't get it to work. So spent a torturous amount of time getting that to work, and ultimately stumbled across another version called Radio Lib, put out by different people. The Radio Lib guys, let's see, I think if I go here, I think I'll get there. Now if I'm getting back to the same place. Anyway, this Radio Lib library seemed to be more used. I actually even found this PhD thesis document where the guy used, the board that I'm using and this library, and did a whole bunch of testing on what's the throughput of that he was able to achieve using different, let's see, SF, I forgot what that stands for. It says it here. It's one of the variables you have, spreading factors. Yeah. So he did a bunch of tests using the same board that I have and this library, and adjusting the spreading factor to get what looks like up to, certainly above 500 bits per second, depending on the payload size. So I'm like, hey, this looks a little bit more used and supported, and there's other programs out there using this particular library. So once again, I changed directions a bit and started trying to figure out this library. And as it was, I didn't find the thesis document until later, but was able to get it to work. So
Can you post a link to that page you just set up?
yeah, let me try to do that. Yeah, that's the one. So again, that's the doctoral thesis.
Is your door open? We're getting a lot of background noise.
It is, I'll close it. Is that better?
So far.
So the bottom line is I've got a couple of these Hello World style programs working, and I was using this. How do I get to? I don't know what that's all about. No, I don't want to jump right in. Goodness gracious, how do I close that? Ah, I did it when I go to project. Maybe I wanted to go to repositories. Come on, mouse. So I've got this, these two working. This other one is a bit more sophisticated code that I don't have working yet. Well, I haven't uploaded it, it appears. So that's where I'm at, is trying to home in on which library to use and then get it to be able to the basis for the remote control. So interesting progress, slow progress. I'm settled on RadioLib as the library to use, and these TTGO boards as the ones to use. So let's see, other than that, I 3D printed a TTGO board holder, and you know, continue to tweak the holder for that. That's what I have.
My computer's complaining, so I'll see how far I get here. It says I have low system resources, and I don't know what that means, but we'll move on with that. So if I say
Rebooting usually fixes that, but I know you don't want to do that right now.
yeah, it's not really what I had in mind right now. So after the meeting last Thursday, I went out to look at my lawn tractor and figure out, you know, how can I, what I want to do is bolt a piece of angle iron across the floor pan and then weld some braces up on it. So let's see if I can get some pictures up here. Photos. Okay, so on this image here, let's see, my sharing looks like it. Okay, so here's my bracket up here that the motor's bolted on, and here's the steering shaft that goes up and down here. And the thing is, this thing, it's a bearing that goes around the steering shaft, so this whole thing can swing back and forth because there's nothing to prevent it right now from doing that. So it turns out that this bearing, it's one of those pillow block bearings. It's actually like a kind of like a ball joint. So basically, of course, it spins around the shaft, because that's the whole point of the bearing, that you can, you know, the thing can turn this way or the shaft can turn inside of that. And the other thing is, the back of it can go up and down because of the ball joint. And it turns out you can also twist it. So, you know, the whole thing can twist left to right around that. So in order to solve two of those problems, here's coming out, here's the bolt that goes through. I've got the long bolt that goes through the motor to hold it in. So what I want to do is I'm going to put these vertical plates, vertical angles here, and drill a hole here and bolt it on. And then down here, put a piece of angle iron across here and bolt it down to the floor pan, and then weld this one onto that piece of angle iron on the bottom. And first I'll try that and see if that's enough to keep it from turning. If not, I may have to say weld a bracket on from here and run it back and bolt it onto the seat frame, the seat box, whatever you call that. So that would give me enough leverage that will prevent it from turning. And then these two on the sides, one on this side and one running down the other side. Here, I got one other picture of that, I think. So here again, it's just right. If I drill a hole right here and bolt that, and then down here, just weld that onto a piece going across here. So the thing was, I thought, okay, I'll try that. And I realized that if I just start randomly drilling holes through the floor pan down here, I have no idea what's underneath and what I would run into if I do that. So let me back up to the beginning here. Okay, so this is when I was originally replacing the belt on the bottom. I just flipped the thing up on the side. First, I drained the oil because I need to change the oil anyway. So I drained the oil, flipped it up on the side, and then underneath, this is the old belt. And you see the old belt's pretty bad shape. See, it's all cracked and there's a real mess there. But underneath, you can see at the top here, this is one of the frame rails on one side, and this is the frame rail on the other side. And I kept going back and forth thinking, can I remove the floor pan and leave the frame? And at first I thought, no, I can't. And I thought, well, maybe if I unbolt everything, including the engine, I could take all the stuff off, pull the floor pan out, and just reassemble it, everything back on the frame. And then I decided, no, I can't do that. And then this time when I'm looking at it, I decided, no, I can't do that because these frame rails right here are actually right here. It's the frame rail is spot welded to the floor pan, which means these things are not gonna, if they are one solid piece now, the way they've done it. So I can't take it off and get access to everything like you have done. So I think I've mentioned this before. If you have a chance to get a John Deere Sabre lawn tractor, just pass it up if unless you're going to mow the yard with it. But so anyway, I had the problem that I couldn't decide if I could drill down through the top and not hit anything in the bottom. So I went to great lengths here. So that's a picture of here's the transaxle in the back. And this is the just an idler pulley on an arm here. It's got a giant spring that pulls forward on that. So if I go to the next picture, this is looking at the same thing from the front. And here's the pulley on the engine. This is the pulley that runs the blade. Here's that big spring I was just talking about. So back here is that idler pulley, and then the spring holds tension on that belt the whole time. And then just looking underneath, there's more fun stuff here. Up here on this thing, you can see where I think it's this bracket here. This bracket and this bracket are what holds the deck underneath. So you've got some pins that go through there. So when the deck's on, you've got pins holding that. And then there's something here that controls the height, and I don't recall right offhand where that is. So we'll just forget about that for a moment. So anyway, it's got these two things that hang down, these two brackets that hang down. And if you look real close up here, there's a spot weld there, a spot weld there, and one there. And I'm not sure. I think what they've done, they've spot welded this bracket onto this frame rail, and then the frame rail is then spot welded onto the floor pan. And we'll go to the next picture here to see if we can see that. So that's ones we looked at. So right here is a case where there's a spot weld right there that has the frame rail spot welded the floor pan. And I don't have a lot of these to really show that off. We'll just move ahead here. So anyway, that is one solid piece. And my original intent was, I think if I look at the top, right across here is where I want to drill my holes to bring down. And you can see there's a belt in the way there and a belt in the way there. And I might hit this pulley if I try to do that. So I kept thinking about that. See what's the next picture look like. Let me back up. So I was thinking, well, in order to stay between those two frame rails, now I've got all this junk in the way. And the more I thought about it, I thought, you know, if I just drill right down through the floor pan and the frame rail, there's nothing there that's really in my way, as long as I can get, say, right in here and right in here. So I was thinking I was going to try that, but I really didn't have any reference between the top and the bottom. So I was looking at it, and on the top here, if I zoom in here, these are spot welds on the top. And I took a Sharpie and put a dot in the middle of them so I could see them easier. So this is how wide the frame rail is underneath. So the frame rail actually is like here, and it's got like some flutes or flanges sticking out. So the frame rail is from about here to about here. And then this is just flat spot out there. So if I'd go halfway in between there, that should hit the center of the frame rail underneath. So if I look at it, see, then there's some weird ones. Here's one here, and I don't see a matching one. So this is probably the matching one. So for some reason, they found it easier to spot weld it there, and then the frame rail still runs right up through here, I think. And then here's another one. This is real close to where I want to drill. So let's see. I think I decided like right across here is where the front of my angle iron would go, which means the holes would have to go right about here. So you can see this spot weld, and you can see this spot weld. And if I flip it over, I can see those on the back, so I can tell where those are. So again, I've got this distance here that so right across here. So if I put a hole right about there and a hole right about there, I think that will hit the center of my frame rails and make that work. So I thought I could see the stuff from the bottom, but then on the top, I can't see it because they put this decal over the top. So it's like a thick piece of plastic. And mainly, it basically says, don't run over your children and don't tip it over or it'll kill you. And I thought, well, yeah, I know that. So I went ahead and peeled that off. And it took me about half an hour to get it off because it is real thick plastic. I started peeling it up, and I found a trick. As you peel it up, you peel it up, you got this like I'll kind of wave front across there where the thing is still stuck down, and you're pulling up on it. You can slowly pull up on it real slow, and it will eventually separate. Or just take a box knife and run across that wave front between the plastic and the metal, and it just slices the adhesive, and it pops up a little, and you pull it up again, and you slice it, and it pops right up. So it still took me like half an hour to get it off. By the time it's done, it had ripped it into 3 pieces, but by the time I was getting towards the end, I didn't care anymore. It did not want to come off, and it was just hard to get in there. I started at the easy side, the easy corner. And by the time I got down to taking this part off over here, I couldn't get my hand in there, and I ended up just ripping it apart. So anyway, I'd say, do I have a picture of that? So here it is after I got the decal off, and let's see, can we see? Here's one of the spot welds. That might be another one. There's one there, and I didn't specifically take a picture to verify this. I think that's one of the spot welds right there. And then I got this adhesive on there too that's left over. And I was trying to find some gasoline to clean it off. I couldn't find any gasoline. I found some, I wanted some acetone. I couldn't find that. So I found a can of printed circuit board developer I seem to have several cans of that around from back in the old days when I tried to make my own printed circuit boards. And I wiped it, and some of it came off fairly well here, but it wasn't going very quickly, and I had very little in the can. I found several more cans later, so I could do that. Plus I found a 20-ounce pop bottle that's had a little bit of gas in it for about 5 years that I was probably trying to prime an engine or something. So I did find that on the ground. If I just take a paper towel, I could probably clean all this adhesive off, and then I'd be able to see if there are more spot welds out in the middle here. That was the whole point. I wanted to take it off so I could see the spot welds. And I don't recall if well, we're not going to be able to tell from these pictures because everything's too dirty and we can't see what's going on. But I think that was one of that looks like that's a spot weld that's not marked. So probably when I took the solvent, it probably took off my marks that I'd put on. But that looks like a spot weld right there. That looks like one right there. And as I say, I don't see the ones out in the middle, but I'm sure they're there. So anyway, I figured that's how I can get my references to use those spot welds to see that. And here's just so again, the decal was there, and you can see the adhesive is still left in the front here. I haven't done anything with that. So I got to the point, I thought, well, if I do that, I can then, that'll solve all of my problems, because I just have to figure out on here where And now I took the decal off, I lost my reference too, because when I said looking at the decal, I had a mark across here, so I knew exactly where it had to go. Now they ripped that off, I can't see that anymore. So we come back here. So now I'm gonna have to figure out, put the whole thing back together with the two braces sticking up and just figure out where across here I want to go. And then hopefully if I drill holes, they'll go in the right spot and not cause any problems. So I got that all done. I thought that's going to be great. Let's see, do I have more pictures at the bottom here? No, let's go back. And I found that by looking if I look down in through here, I could see the wiring that's in the back here. And I realized on this side over here, they have taken the wiring harness and run it through that frame rail. So one side has a bunch of loose wires in it. And I thought, well, that's not gonna be handy, because if I start drilling through that, I'm gonna drill right through those wires. So that was by Thursday night. That's how far I got. I thought, okay, that's gonna work. Now I don't remember if I think I took the decal off on Friday, but I got to the point where I thought, yeah, I can drill through the frame rails and everybody will be happy. And then I realized, oh no, they got wires running through that. So I thought, well, Friday morning I will go out and either disconnect the wires in the back here or disconnect the wires in the front up here, and then pull the whole wiring harness out and then decide what to do with it. Either lay it on top or run it underneath somewhere. So, and just to show, here's a random picture. I was taking a picture of the bottom and looking through that hole in the frame rail. There's my purple wire and there's my white wire with a black tracer on it. So yeah, there really are wires inside of that. So I had to end up, I started in the back. Let's see, do I have a picture of that? There's the front. Here's a little bit of the back. So in the back, originally, here's my 5 wires. There's the big wire for the starter is bolted right to the starter solenoid here. And there's 2 white wires and a red wire and a purple wire. The purple wire just plugs into the solenoid to turn it on and off. And the red wire actually had a connector, so I could just disconnect that one. That's just supplies 12 volts to everything in the front. And these 2 white wires, one of them runs down below to my reverse switch on the transmission. And there was no way to get it off, so I cut that one. And then later I spliced it back together here. I just spliced and put tape on it. And then the one for my seat switch, which is just laying there right now, I ended up cutting that one out here and putting tape on that one. So by the time it's done, I ran those through this piece of plastic here. So if I back up here and show, so here in the front is where the 5 wires are. Here's the big red one from the starter. And then somewhere is this is probably the little red one. And here's the purple wire. And then there's 2 white wires going there. So what I did, I just bundled those together with electrical tape. So I got 5 wires and taped it in several spots. I found this plastic sheathing stuff laying around that was left over from a Danfoss project. So I put that on there. And let's see, how can I do like this? So here's the back part of it. So again, here's the plastic stuff. I just ran it across the top and stuck it in through the hole in the back here and wired everything back together. So theoretically, everything should still run. If I go try to start it up now, it should. I think the electrical stuff is all back to where it should be. It did have more pictures here. That was the front. And then just overall view, again, here's all the wires in the front, runs through this plastic tube and then comes into the frame, and then everything screws on right about here underneath the thing. So that's how far I got on that. And so now, and I got distracted by trying to clean out my house, and I had a refrigerator delivered, so I didn't get anything done. And so I think what I'm going to do is, if I go back to this one, I just need to figure out, so as I was saying on the decal, right about here is the line that, see, this is where the front of that, if I put a piece of angle iron like this, that's the line across there. So I need to figure out where to drill a hole here in the frame, and then drill a hole in the frame over here to bolt that piece down. And then these vertical pieces, I just have to stick them on there and then figure out, once I get it in place, I probably should weld it. And then, well, maybe I should measure the height here and drill the holes so I can get this all bolted together. And then the last thing is I'll weld these vertical braces onto this horizontal brace. And then I'll be close enough that I can tell, is that going to keep it from turning? or am I gonna have to do something funny in the back here to support it, to keep it from turning? So that's kind of where I'm at right now with that.
Did
Yeah.
you ever?
One other
you
problem I
notice-
have, that, you know, like on your motor, it's got that big long hole through it. So you got the big bolt that that goes through. Well, that's the only hole in the motor right now. So right now the hole is right about here, and the motor can swing back and forth like this. So I need to figure out some way to keep that, make that solid. And there are here, down here on the face of it, there's some tapped holes. I could just put a piece of steel through there and bolt it on, and then some of this stuff I'm putting on here just weld it on. So I could run a brace across that, which number one would make it stronger, and then this strap there will keep the motor from turning, keep the motor from rotating this direction. So once I get to that point, then I'll know if that's close enough that it's going to work. And once I get that done, then I can put the gas tank back on, hook all the hoses up, and then see if I can get the thing to start after all this time. It looks like my battery is in good enough shape that it may actually work after sitting around for going through 2 winters of not taking it out. I did charge it, and it looks like it's holding a charge. So hopefully I could put gas in it and start it and make it run. So that'll be my next step.
Did you ever consider welding instead of drilling a hole in that uniframe? Just welding a bracket across that and then bolting
Down here at the bottom.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. I think this is steel, so that I suppose that would work.
I mean, I know you always wanted to like be able to return it to normal condition, but yeah, that would be an option as well. And if you just, instead of welding it all, I mean, if you just welded on the bracket and then had holes in the bracket that you could bolt to,
Yeah.
would be an option.
One reason I want to weld these vertical braces to this horizontal brace down here is because I'm trying to get that to be one piece, because again, here's the steering shaft going up and down here, and here's the bearing. So this whole thing can rotate back, and it can rotate around that. And I need some way to prevent that from rotating. Now right here, I don't have a lot of leverage between the steering shaft and where I'm holding on to it. So I don't know that's going to be strong enough to hold that. It could be if it tries to turn, it's just going to bend these sideways. And that's why I want to weld it at the bottom. I can weld it in several places and get that fairly strong. And if I end up putting a brace across in order to hook on to keep the motor from rotating this way, then that'll also strengthen the thing by doing that. So I just need to look at it some more before I commit myself too hard. I'll look at that stuff and see what I can do with that.
It all takes time.
Yeah, it all takes way too much time and way too much screwing around. And the other thing I was trying to do was, by the time I'm done, I want this is the blade height adjustment here. So you push down this lever and you can run this handle up and down. So I still want that to be able to get full travel. So I have to be careful hitting things up here. And right now with the seat on, if I fold the seat forward, this was too long. So I actually end up cutting part of this off this frame here, and then the seat will come forward and not be a problem. Now, if I end up welding something on here to come back here, hook on this part, again, the seat might be in the way. So I might have more problems there with that. So it's just a matter of figuring out. I could just weld something here, it comes straight down at an angle to one of these holes and bolt onto the hole. That probably would clear the seat, and I think this thing would still work. So again, it's just a matter of playing around with it and looking at it long enough. Oh, the other problem I had, see this right here is the steering shaft. So the steering wheels just goes up on top of that, and then this goes down underneath to the gear to turn it. And this right here is it's like a 1/2-inch diameter rod that's actually the blade clutch lever. And originally, when it was put together, this came up at about this same angle as the steering shaft. And it turns out that number one, it had a bracket in the way. I had to cut this bracket, move it down. And because if I don't do that, when I go to put the gas tank on, the gas tank doesn't want that right there. So I have to move that back here to where it should be. So that's another thing I had to do. I cut this off, this bracket, moved it back this way, and then I can swing that back and the gas tank looks like it will fit. So it's just things like that. If you got it partially taken apart, you start working on it, things aren't going to work when you get so far. You get so far that, oh man, I shouldn't have done that 6 steps ago. So I'm still trying to correct for that. And so we'll see. We'll see if I get these vertical braces bolted on, if that looks like it's going to be strong enough to hold it. And if not, then I'll just have to put something back here to you know, stick it out to bolt on the frame back there. That'll have enough leverage on the thing that it should be able to counteract any torque of that thing trying to turn. So that's, as I say, that's where I'm at. Was in our pictures here. Oh yeah, I was showing you how bad the belt was. Well, here's the new belt. See, now it doesn't have any cracks in it, and it's in good shape because I put it on and haven't really run it hardly at all. So what was the other picture I had here?
The bottom sure looks clean.
What does?
The bottom.
Well, I think when I had it flipped up, I think I took the garden hose to it. Because when I started, you know, everything, this is when I was first doing it. You can see it's got the crack belt on here. See, it all kinds of crap under here. So I took the garden hose and hosed everything down. A note on the steering, you know, on yours, you got that big half moon gear. So you've got the steering shaft comes down to the little gear, which moves the big gear. Then you got 2 control rods. Well, mine simply has, it's got this shaft that comes down here to a gear right about here somewhere. And then I've got kind of a big gear here. And that then underneath. So the gear, I don't know if you can see it here. So this is a second shaft that comes out. This is like a one that runs vertical. It's not at the weird angle that the steering wheel is, but it just simply has here's the shaft coming down, and it's got this big arm welded onto it. So I've got a single control rod that runs from here, and you can't see it, but it runs up here to the right steering, and then there's a rod from the right steering to the left steering here. So that's the way my steering works. So it's closer to the way a car works, as opposed to yours. You got a separate control rod for the left and a separate one for the right. And not that it really makes much difference. It's just simply if I turn the steering wheel, my steering moves, so that I'm going to assume that's going to work for me. And I was looking at this picture, and then up here I was noticing here's some kind of like an alien black hole in my frame. And I don't know what that is, but yeah, I just thought that was kind of odd.
That's a hole.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a hole or it might just be a reflection or something. So they have various holes drilled through, so these wires, then they could shove the wires up through the hole. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what that actually is, and it's not really an issue. It's just that I saw it there and thought that was kind of odd. So I think did I make it to the end of my pictures here? What happened to my? There's my arrow. This is just simply in the back where, as I was saying, this is where the new wiring harness comes up. There used to be a hole right here in the frame, and all the wires went down into that frame, but I took it out now. So now they just come in the back. And as I say, I think I've got everything to the point where everything should work. And I guess that's into my photos. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, that mechanical stuff takes a lot of time. It all takes time. Like the software piece goes fast. It doesn't.
It's just the fact having to redo everything is what seems to take the time. Or if you spend enough time up front looking at it, say, well, if I do this and this and this, you spend a lot of time trying to figure out several steps ahead, and still you get to the point like where I found out that bracket was in the way and the gas tank won't fit anymore. So I have to go. I had to monkey with that, and I think it's the point where, I think everything will go back together now. I've had the gas tank on, but I didn't have the hoses because they're in the way. But I think it looks like everything will fit.
Cool. Well, I wish it were easier. I think you can turn off recording.